Today's Mercedes-Benz interview of the day brought to you by Mercedes-Benz EV. What makes a Mercedes-Benz EV different? Electric is what gets you there. The vehicle's all electric. The feeling all Mercedes. Choice all yours. Learn more at nbusa.com/EQ. We'll talk about Jaden Daniels' pro day at LSU yesterday. And also, Ice Cube talks about the $5 million offer to Caitlin Clark to play in the Big Three. Jeff Passan of the Mothership. You can see him today, all day, all night, and opening night of baseball here. And then you have the Rangers hosting the Cubs at 7:30 Eastern, the exclusive national presentation. Great to have you back on, Jeff. Let me start with the Dodgers with Shohei Otani and any updates or anything that you expect here in the next couple of days.
This is going to be a while, Dan. And it's going to be a while, I think, because we have to understand what the investigations going on into this situation are. Number one, there is a federal investigation into the bookmaking operation that allegedly was taking place in Southern California. And, Shohei Otani is like a tiny little speck of a much more sprawling look into what was going on. And because he's Shohei Otani and because of the salaciousness of the allegations, it feels like he's a much bigger part of that. But in reality, this case is so big, it could take a while yet for there to be resolution there. And Major League Baseball at the same time, generally speaking, its investigation tends to align, at least when being wrapped up, with the larger criminal investigations that are going on. And if the criminal investigation is not going to be wrapped up for a long time, chances are Major League Baseball's is not going to either, unless there is clear and obvious establishment of Shohei Otani's version of the story that we've heard so far, which is that Ipe Mitsuhara, his interpreter, stole $4.5+ million from him to pay off gambling debts. Now, one thing we still do not know is who Otani's camp reached out to in terms of law enforcement officials to say, hey, this guy stole $4.5 million. Start looking into it and start looking into charges. And not only do we not know it, but when our reporters, Tisha Thompson and Paul Levine, are asking Otani's camp, they're saying we're not going to tell you anything. And so it's a missing piece, Dan, that would go a really long way, I think, to validating Otani's story. Right now, we have his version of the story, and logically, a fair bit of it makes sense. But there are also questions that are unanswered. And when you have unanswered questions and the story changing like it did at the beginning, there's going to be skepticism and cynicism about the version that he's telling.
When's the last time you remember a team that it was World Series or bust, like the Dodgers?
Last year with the Dodgers. Like every year with the Dodgers. I mean, when you,
but it's more so this year.
Every year with them, I really do, because they put these mega teams together, like that's what they are. And they don't. I'm sorry, Dan. They don't put teams together to go win the NL West. They don't put teams together to go win the National League pennant. If they don't win the World Series, it's a disappointing season because they've got Mookie Betts, who is still in his prime, isn't always going to be. They've got Freddie Freeman, who's still in his prime, isn't always going to be. And yeah, they added Shohei Otani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto and Tyler Glasnow and Teoscar Hernandez, and turned a team that had World Series aspirations into a team with maybe like a little more World Series aspirations. So I understand what you're saying, but I look at the Atlanta Braves too. Like let's consider the window that they're in right now when they have this incredible core of players, and they've got Chris Sale coming over, a guy who's no spring chicken, and Charlie Morton, who in all likelihood is going to be retiring after this season. Things are going to change for them too. So are they World Series or bust? I mean, I would suggest that yes, they're in the same boat that the Dodgers are.
Couple other things before I get to baseball today. The Oakland A's situation. How awkward is this that they're trying to find, a temporary home before they get to their new permanent home, but they still have their old home?
Yeah. Imagine the most awkward situation that you've ever been in, and then multiply it by 10, and it's still not as awkward as the A's being in Oakland. The A's essentially have said to the city of Oakland, we don't want to be here. And that is against the backdrop of all of these players playing in this awful stadium, and fans feeling like this isn't even our team anymore. And so you're going to have an empty stadium. You're going to have a city in Las Vegas that maybe doesn't want them, because why would you want a team owned by someone in John Fisher who is so willing to gut the franchise to the point that it's major league? And now, granted, the A's on the field this year, Dan, are not going to be nearly as bad as they were last year. They may not be the worst team in the American League, but they're still going to stink. And it's like you have 29 Major League Baseball franchises and one team that's called the Major League Baseball franchise, but is run like the worst minor league outfit you've ever seen.
But is there a record for the fewest number of fans to go watch a team, their home games? I don't know if somebody, Paulie, did the A's set the all-time record last year?
We're checking. They had 832,000 on the season. They averaged 10,000 a game. In comparison, the Dodgers had 3.8 million people show up.
Yeah. That's definitely not the lowest that it's been, but we may see it this year.
Yeah, it's true. Mike Trout, I think, is turning 33. At what point does Mike Trout say, maybe I need to have a change of scenery? Or when do the Angels say, are you thinking about a change of scenery?
It's a really good question. Like there are a few things every spring that I try to go to because they're interesting or because they're going to be particularly newsworthy. And Mike Trout's first media availability this year was high on that list because, I wanted to ask him that same question. Like, how much longer can you oblige?
Yeah.
How much longer are you going to stay with a team that you've been to the playoffs with one time in your illustrious career? And that one time you got swept out by the Kansas City Royals. Like that's the wildest part of Mike Trout's career. He's one of the 5 to 10 best players that we've ever seen, and he still hasn't won a playoff game. And the clock is ticking now. He's not going to be getting a whole lot better in his mid to late 30s, and I think he desperately wants to be somewhere where he can win. But there's that tug of loyalty too, Dan. Like, he's been an Angel his entire career, and if he's going to win, he wants it to be with that organization. But the question is, can that organization win with Artie Moreno owning the team and making the decisions that get in the way of its ability to do so? They've got some really interesting young players. I think Logan O'Hoppe, their catcher, is going to be really good. Zach Neto, their shortstop, Nolan Shanuel at first base. Like, they've got some guys, but do they have enough in that division? Not even close, because the American League West is nasty this year. The Texas Rangers won the World Series last year. The Houston Astros have been to 7 consecutive American League Championship Series, and I think the Seattle Mariners have the best rotation in baseball. So you've got all these teams around, and then the Angels, who have gutted their farm system, have not spent intelligently at the major league level, and couldn't win when they had arguably the 2 best players in the entire game there at the same time for a 6-year period. So what suggests that they're going to be doing it now?
Talking to Jeff Passan of the Mothership. ESPN has the national presentation of opening night. It'll be the Rangers and the Cubs at 7:30 Eastern. All right. If not the Dodgers or Braves in the National League, then who?
There's a really good argument to be made that the Phillies are a better team, or at least a better playoff team, when you've got Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola at the top of a rotation, and a team that has not just the hitting depth that they do, their bullpen's really, really good. And so I like, it's a do not sleep on this bullpen good group. And so I think Philadelphia is probably the obvious answer. What about Arizona, though? Like, let's not forget, they made it to the World Series last year, and then they go out and add Jordan Montgomery. They add Eduardo Rodriguez. They bring back Lourdes Gurriel. They bring in Jock Peterson and Randall Grichuk. Like,
were they a great story or a great team?
They were a great team in October, Dan. And the in October caveat is important. And I think it speaks to the sport of baseball right now. I don't give a damn what you did between April and September. If you play better in October than someone else, the way that baseball is, you can be walked in glory forever. All it takes is one really good hot month. And that's what the Diamondbacks had. So even if they were a mediocre to slightly above average team during the regular season, I remember doing a story in the World Series about just toward the end, like 5 games in, how clean it had been. Like, the amount of incredible defensive plays that the Texas Rangers and Arizona Diamondbacks made in the World Series made it an extremely enjoyable series to watch, even if it was only 5 games. Like, there was good ball being played. And the Diamondbacks adding those 2 starting pitchers that I mentioned on top of Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly, and you know, tapping that rotation with Brandon Pfaadt, who in the World Series was really good. Like, it's a formidable roster, and I'm excited to see year 2 of the Corbin Carroll show. I think he's got a chance to be a top 5 MVP guy this year after winning Rookie of the Year and being in the mix last year. And I think he's going to be even better this season than he was.
The American League, Rangers defending champs. Astros always get there. Yankees brought in some talent. So if it's not, you're not quite all in on the Yankees there?
I'm not there on the Yankees right now.
All right.
The Garrett Cole injury
Sure.
is an absolute killer. And yes, they added Marcus Stroman to their rotation. And sure, like, Luis Gil looked great in spring training. But I worry that they're too old. I worry that they are injury prone, and they lost the best pitcher in Major League Baseball for at least 2 months to an elbow injury that, you know, if we're just assuming it's going to heal, I've known elbows for too long to know that they do not heal on a schedule. Like, I've just seen it too many times where you assume a guy is going to be back at a particular point. This is not a soft tissue injury. You know, this is nerve, and this is ulnar collateral ligament. And these are things that when you try and put them on a schedule, laugh at you. So if they get Garrett Cole back and get him back healthy and back at the level that he's been at, and if Carlos Rodon can pitch to his contract, then yeah, they're going to be in the mix. I still do not think they're as good as the Orioles, Dan.
We were talking about this the other day with how tough it's going to be for Hall of Fame voters looking at starting pitchers moving forward, because Verlander's a Hall of Famer. Kershaw is there's only Scherzer's a Hall of Famer.
Those are the 3.
But after that, is there a starting pitcher currently in baseball who you could see is on the projection to be a Hall of Famer?
I mean, I think Cole is probably in the mix. I think Zach Wheeler is putting himself into the mix. I think if Jacob deGrom hadn't been hurt, he's got, you know, the 2 Cy Youngs, but his career feels more Lincecum-y right now than it does Hall of Fame. And, you know, he's going to be.
But aren't we adjusting our numbers of, like, you?
Going to
get
100%.
to 200 wins? That's not going to happen with these younger guys.
I mean, you have to adjust your numbers, and in the same way, I think that voters now, Dan, take into account something like on base percentage more than they did in the past. I think we're smarter as a collective when it comes to Hall of Fame voting in terms of figuring out what's right, but also contextualizing it throughout generations. And if you hold starting pitchers who pitched in the 2010s and 2020s to the same sorts of standards that guys used to have, you're literally not going to have a single pitcher who goes in the Hall of Fame from this generation. Like, you're just not, because it's a different job and it's a different game. And it's, I think it stinks. I don't like that this is where starting pitching has gone. It's my biggest pet peeve about baseball these days, that you took this group of players who collectively take up half of the sport, and you essentially said, we are not going to allow you to be a star because you're not going to go more than 5 or 6 innings. And that I think has been detrimental to the game, and it's problematic going forward, and something that whether it's through active rule changes or something a little bit more passive at the youth level, where they start emphasizing going deeper into games rather than throwing really hard. It's just a priority that the sport hasn't put at the forefront, and it's been detrimental to the game accordingly.
Yeah, it's almost like if I'm a pitcher, a young pitcher, I want to be a closer than I do a starter, because I probably have a better chance there of being a star, maybe making a lot of money and having, I don't know, if you want to pitch 5 innings, that's great, but you might have a shift.
I still think like my kid's a pitcher, and he wants to be the ace. There's still something among players about starting. It's just that they don't look at what their duty is the same way that they have in the past. If you get through 5 or 6 innings, you've done your job.
Yeah, but would you rather start a game or close a game? I'd rather close a game. In today's baseball, I'd rather close a game.
That's really interesting, because you get paid $15 million for 1 inning of work.
Yes.
Because you get to sit in the clubhouse until the 6th inning and then meander. Yeah, it's a better job. You're right about that. It's a much better job. But would you, you're a star, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you are, and I feel like you'd want to be on the mound at the beginning of the game rather than.
Yeah, but if I'm only going 5.5, then no.
Okay, that's fair.
I want to be the guy who shuts you down, and then all of a sudden everybody comes out and congratulates me, and then I walk off. Heroes welcome.
What kind of closer would you be? Would you be the closer who over time just got fatter and fatter and just embraced the? No, I'm not saying you have gotten. You look fantastic, but I'm saying I feel like you would embrace the lifestyle of the closer, where you would be the guy who, was drinking beers after the game and having snacks and sitting in the bullpen and flicking seeds.
I would
you're going to be
Goose Gossage.
Yeah, exactly. If you're going to be a closer, go full send on your closer.
Yes. I'm going to tell you what I'm throwing, and I'm going to see if you can hit it.
And they can't, because you're Dan Patrick.
Absolutely.
Baby.
Thank you, Jeff. Hey, have a great day. Always great to catch up with you.
Take it easy, buddy. Happy opening day, everyone.
That's Jeff Passan of the Mothership, ESPN opening night. You have the World Series champion Rangers hosting the Cubs, 7:30 Eastern. Play